This happened just a few weeks ago. I had moved to Tennessee feeling hopeful about my new job and life. I found a cute two-story house on a quiet street. The neighbors seemed nice and the scenery was beautiful. But on my first night I felt a chill I couldn't shake. The second night I woke up to faint thumping sounds coming from the attic. At first I thought it was the house settling. I tried to ignore it, but the thumping didn't stop. Each night, it grew louder and more rhythmic. It pulled me from my dreams. I could feel unease creeping in. I walked around the house and the feeling only grew stronger. The shadows outside my window seemed longer at twilight, shifting behind the trees. I stood by the window, heart racing. Did I just see something move? I shook my head, brushing it off. Maybe it was my imagination. I remembered the previous owner. There was old furniture scattered around the house. It felt off. It was like they had left hurriedly. Something didn't sit right. So I decided to ask my neighbors about them. I thought they might have some insight into the house's history. I knocked on Mrs. Green's door a couple of houses down. She opened the door with a smile, but it faded as I spoke. I was curious about the last owner of my house, I said. She looked worried. Be careful, she said, avoiding my eyes. Some things shouldn't be disturbed. I stared at her, confused. She quickly excused herself. I left, feeling unsettled. Was she just being protective? Or was there something more to her warning? That evening I stood in my living room. The thumping in the attic started again, louder this time. I moved closer to the attic door, listening. My hands felt clammy as I reached for the doorknob. I hesitated. What was up there? I pulled away, heart pounding. I thought about Mrs. Green's warning. I was scared. Then out of the corner of my eye I saw movement. A shadow darted past the window. I spun around, my chest tightening. Should I investigate or run? The darkness outside felt alive. Part of me wanted to stay in, but I found myself stepping toward the window again. Then a loud crash from the attic shattered the silence. I jumped back, my heart racing. Cold sweat formed on my brow. I wanted to scream or call someone, but what could I say? I stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The thumping stopped. Total silence filled the air. Something told me that whatever was happening wasn't over. I felt it deep in my bones. I needed to know what that sound was, but part of me was terrified. Maybe I shouldn't have moved here. Maybe I was in over my head. I took a deep breath, holding on to the railing. It felt wrong, but I needed to check. I opened the attic door, my heart pounding in my chest. I stepped inside, bracing myself for whatever waited in the darkness. The attic was pitch black. I reached for the light switch, but my fingers trembled. Finally, I flipped it on. The dim light flickered to life, revealing old boxes and dusty furniture. The air felt stale and heavy, as if it had been trapped for years. I scanned the room. There was an old rocking chair in the corner, its wood splintering and creaking under the slightest pressure. I shivered as I thought of the stories it could tell. Then, my eyes caught something unusual. A trunk partially hidden behind a stack of boxes locked up tight. As I stepped closer, my stomach knotted. Was it from the last owner? I hesitated, debating whether to open it. The thumping noise had stopped, but I could feel something was still off. I nudged a nearby box with my foot. It toppled over, spilling papers everywhere. I knelt down, grabbing an old yellowed flyer. It had my house's address on it. The event details were obscured, but the date was engraved in my mind. 1981. What had happened here? Why was it important enough to keep buried? My heart raced again as I pieced together stories I had heard from Mrs. Green. Something about a tragedy. But who had experienced loss? Then I heard it again. A soft tapping echoed through the room. It was almost rhythmic but unsettling. My skin prickled. I wasn't alone. Suddenly the attic door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled me to my core. I jumped up, spinning around. Panic surged through me. I rushed to the doorknob, pulling on it, but it wouldn't budge. "Hello," I called out, voice shaky. Silence echoed back. I turned back to the trunk, my curiosity overshadowing my fear. It felt essential to know what was in there. I spotted a small ornate key lying next to the rocking chair, partly hidden under dust. I picked it up and felt its weight in my palm. Could it be the key to the trunk? My heartbeat quickened. I hurried back to the trunk, kneeling beside it. I inserted the key into the lock, and a soft click filled the room. The lid creaked open, and I felt a rush of cold air. Inside were family photos, faded and frayed. I flipped through them, heart-hammering. There was a woman with dark hair, smiling brightly. It looked like she was holding a baby. I scanned more pictures. The same woman appeared over and over, but the smiles faded as the years progressed. That's when I saw it. A final photo tucked at the bottom of the trunk. The woman, looking older now, standing in front of my house. But there was something behind her. A figure, half in shadow. I couldn't breathe. My gut twisted. I needed to leave. I felt the air grow colder and the tapping intensified from somewhere deeper in the attic. Something wanted my attention, and I was terrified to know what. I heard a rustling noise behind me. I spun around just as the light flickered. Shadows formed on the walls, and then everything went dark. When the darkness hit, everything about the attic vanished. My breath quickened and I stumbled back, my palms grazing the trunk. I could only see shapes shifting in the shadows, creating the illusion of movement. It was as if darkness had a life of its own. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, though my voice trembled. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I took a cautious step forward, hoping to reach the light switch again. The tapping sound resumed, louder this time, like nails against wood. It felt like it was coming from above me. I pressed my hands against the walls, feeling for a way, any way, out of this nightmare. Suddenly the light flickered back on and I squinted against the brightness. My heart sank when I saw her, a pale figure standing in the far corner looking directly at me. I froze, dread crawling up my spine. She wore a long faded dress, her hair hanging loosely around her shoulders. Her eyes were dark, filled with an unsettling sorrow. And she was the woman from the photographs. Who are you?" I stammered, feeling my voice shake. The figure remained silent, her gaze unblinking. Instead of answering, she pointed toward the staircase, a slow, deliberate motion that seemed more urgent than simple direction. A chill shot down my spine. My instincts screamed at me to run. I turned toward the attic door, but it was still closed tight. The tapping grew frantic. I took a step back, heart racing. Something about her presence felt like an unanswered question. I was caught between the urge to flee and the need to understand. I glanced back at the trunk, but it felt like staring into a well of shadows. I had to know what was happening, who she was, and why she was here. I took a shaky breath and looked back at her. "What do you want from me?" Her pointer finger dropped slightly and gestured toward the trunk. My confusion deepened. What could she want with it? My gut told me this was about more than dusty old photographs. I backed away from her, my mind racing. I remembered the flyer and the event in 1981. What had happened that year? The clicking sound returned, sharper now. I turned toward the trunk again. It was open, but now I could see more items that had slipped out. A diary lay face up, its pages fluttering slightly as if a breeze stirred the air. I was drawn to it. I moved tentatively closer, my heart in my throat. The woman had started to fade, melting back into the shadows. I felt the weight of the moment. I needed to find out what the diary contained, even as an inkling of fear told me to leave the attic entirely. As I bent down to pick up the diary, a loud bang echoed behind me. I whipped around, adrenaline surging through me. Something, was coming for me. I stumbled back, my pulse racing, mind racing even faster. The sound of banging echoed again, coming from the attic door. It was a heavy, desperate thumping, like something or someone was trying to break in. I could feel a rush of heat in my face and a cold sweat forming at my temples. "Stay calm. Just breathe," I repeated to myself, though it did little to steady my racing heart. My eyes flicked to the shadowy corner where she had stood, but she was gone now. The emptiness there felt heavy, as if I had misplaced something important. The banging grew louder, more urgent. Was this a trick of my mind, or was something truly trying to get in? I turned back to the diary. My instincts pushed me to ignore the sound and focus on what I might learn. I reached out and grasped the leather cover, expecting it to feel aged and worn. But instead it was warm to the touch, as if it held a secret that had just recently been unlocked. As I opened it, the pages were filled with elegant handwriting, swirling lines that were surprisingly neat given the age of the book. My eyes skimmed over words like lost, disappearance, and regret. There were drawings, too, some of landscapes, others of faces that looked oddly familiar. But then a name caught my attention: Margaret Mayfield. The name resonated with me, a pulse of recognition. I had seen it somewhere, on one of those old photographs. The woman from the pictures was connected to this diary. I felt a frisson of dread as I continued reading. Then I heard it again. The attic door thudded violently, as if someone was really trying to force it open. My heart ratcheted up another notch. Should I run? Should I hide? Suddenly the light flickered again and I felt a pull, like the energy in the room was shifting. I quickly glanced back at the words on the page. The day she vanished. Before I could read more, the attic door burst open with an ear-splitting crash, and my breath hitched in my throat. There stood a figure, a man, towering and shadowy, blocking the entrance like a dark silhouette. The air in the room instantly felt charged, like a storm was about to break. Margaret? His voice was low and gravelly, laced with an urgency I couldn't understand. My instincts kicked in. I shot to my feet, clutching the diary to my chest, my mind racing with how to escape. In that moment, everything I thought I knew twisted into uncertainty. Who was he? What did he want? "Why are you looking for her?" I shouted, my voice steadying despite the chaos in my mind. He took a step forward, eyes locked on the diary. "You shouldn't have opened that." Panic surged through me as I realized I had only scratched the surface of a much deeper mystery. With nowhere to run, I faced him, ready to fight for answers. But what I found in his gaze was something far more unsettling: the look of a man haunted by loss. And in that instant, the diary slipped from my hands, falling open at my feet. I held my breath as the pages fluttered wildly, revealing the words I nearly overlooked. "Find her before it's too late." The man's eyes widened as he caught sight of the words on the page. They seemed to pull him in, as if he was desperate for the knowledge contained within those delicate sheets. But I couldn't shake the feeling of danger radiating from him. "Who are you?" I asked again, trying to keep my voice steady, though it wavered slightly. I took a cautious step back, the weight of the diary still pressing down in my hands. "Why are you searching for Margaret?" He opened his mouth, but before he could respond, I heard a noise that made my hair stand on end. A low, eerie whisper seemed to seep through the attic walls, wrapping around us like a living thing. "Find her," it echoed, melding with the words I'd just read. "Listen." I turned to face him, my anger rising. "This isn't a joke. What happened to her?" His expression darkened. "You don't understand. You can't be involved in this. It's too late for you." Before I could respond, he lunged forward, reaching for the diary. I instinctively pulled it away, backing into the wall. My heart raced as he closed the distance between us. "Stop!" I shouted, desperation infusing my voice. "What do you know about her? Why do you care?" Just then, the atmosphere shifted. The temperature in the room dropped and a chill swept through me. "Margaret," the voice whispered again, and I felt my heart thump painfully in my chest. It sounded closer now, almost as if it was coming from behind me. I turned, my stomach lurching. Shadows in the attic corner darkened, pulling together like tendrils reaching toward me. I felt an oppressive weight surround us, heavy and suffocating. The man recoiled, eyes wide with fear. "Get out," he yelled. And for a split second I was taken aback by the terror in his voice. I didn't need to be told twice. Clenching the diary, I darted past him, barely brushing against his arm. I burst through the attic door just as the cold of the shadows gripped my back. I stumbled down the stairs, adrenaline surging through my veins. "Don't go down there," he shouted. But I didn't look back. I sprinted to the front door, heart pounding, breath coming in ragged gasps. I was almost there, freedom was so close. But just as my hand reached for the doorknob, everything went black. The world around me disappeared, swallowed by sudden darkness. It felt like I was being pulled under and a scream lodged itself in my throat. Then everything shifted, and I was standing in the attic again. The man was gone. The whispers were silent, and the diary lay on the floor, pages fluttering gently like a trapped bird trying desperately to escape. A sense of dread washed over me. What had just happened? And what did it mean? As I leaned down to pick up the diary, I noticed something new amongst the pages, a photograph tucked inside. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out. That's when I saw it. The image of a woman with familiar features and a hauntingly empty expression. Underneath were the words, Margaret Mayfield, 1903. I gasped, realizing that I had only just begun to uncover the truth. And this truth was going to pull me deeper into the darkness than I had ever imagined. I held the photograph in shaking hands, staring at the face of the woman who looked so much like me. Margaret Mayfield. I couldn't shake the unease boiling inside me. I had to know more. I flipped through the diary again, hoping for clues, but the earlier entries were mostly blank. Just as I was about to close it, one line caught my eye, scrawled hastily in a corner. She is not lost, only hidden. What did that mean? I wasn't sure I wanted to find out, but curiosity had a tight grip on me. I looked around the attic, searching for anything that might help me figure this out. Shadows danced across the wooden beams, reminding me of the fear that had just consumed me moments ago. I hesitated, knowing I shouldn't. But I had to understand. I left the attic and headed outside where the sunlight felt oddly warm against my chilled skin. I went to the local library, hoping to dig through any records about Margaret Mayfield or her family. Maybe there was something there that would explain the whispers and the man's fear. The librarian recognized me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Back again?" she asked, barely waiting for my answer. "What do you need this time?" "I'm looking for information on Margaret Mayfield. She lived here in the early 1900s, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The librarian paused, a flicker of apprehension crossing her features. "That's an unusual request. What do you know about her?" "She's in this diary," I said. "I need to learn about her. Please, I can't explain it, but it's important." After a moment of silence, she nodded. "All right. Follow me." As she led me to a small back room filled with old archives, I felt my chest tighten. Dust floated in the air, illuminated by slivers of sunlight struggling to break through. The librarian pulled out an old box labeled Mayfield. When she opened it, I gasped. Inside were newspaper clippings, birth and death certificates, and letters. I rifled through them, heart racing. Most of it was mundane, but then I found something that made my blood run cold. A letter addressed to Margaret. It was penned in an elegant script, but the words twisted in my mind. "Come to me where the shadows gather. Only then will you be free." I read it over and over, confusion flooding me. Why would anyone write such a thing? And why did it make my skin crawl? Then, the librarian cleared her throat, pulling me from my thoughts. "It's getting late. I think you should leave now." "Just a bit longer," I pleaded. "Please, I need more time." But she shook her head, a look of worry in her eyes. "You don't understand the dangers of digging into family secrets?" Her words sent a jolt through me, a warning wrapped in urgency. I had to push through. I had to find Margaret. But why did it feel like I was being watched? The sun had lowered in the sky, casting eerie shadows in the room. I glanced toward the door, my heart racing more with each passing second. I needed answers, but I could feel a presence lurking outside. Something was waiting for me. With renewed determination, I slipped the letter into my pocket. I left the library, the air thick with tension. I could sense that the shadows were gathering around me again, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I stepped out of the library and into the quickly darkening street. The chill of the evening air enveloped me, sending a shiver down my spine. I hurried along the pavement, glancing over my shoulder every few steps. The feeling of being watched only intensified. I reached my car and fumbled for the keys in my pocket, my hands shaking. I was almost there when I heard a sound, soft footsteps behind me. I turned, but there was no one in sight. The street was empty, and an uneasy silence settled around me. I quickly unlocked the car and slid inside, locking the doors behind me. As I took a deep breath, my thoughts raced. That letter haunted me. Come to me where the shadows gather. What kind of mystery was I stepping into? I drove back home, but I kept my eyes peeled. Was someone following me? The shadows loomed larger, stretching into strange forms in my rearview mirror. I shook my head, trying to shake off the paranoia. I needed clarity, not fear. Inside, I turned on all the lights, my heart still pounding. I took out the letter and laid it on the kitchen table. There was something about those words, an invitation of sorts, but to what? As I stared at it, my phone buzzed, startling me. It was a message from Sarah, my best friend since childhood. Hey, want to catch up? Let's grab coffee tomorrow. I stared at the screen, hesitating. Part of me wanted to dive deeper into Margaret's past, but another part craved the comfort of a normal life even for just a moment. I replied quickly, agreeing to meet. It was a brief escape from the madness, a chance to breathe. After I sent the message, I decided to revisit the diary. Perhaps there was something I overlooked. I found the attic stairway again, the wooden steps creaking under my weight. The air felt different, charged with something heavy. Once in the attic, I opened the diary and retraced my steps, but this time I felt like I was being drawn into it, as if every entry was alive. I flipped to the first few pages again, searching for anything new that might reveal a connection. That's when I saw it, a small folded piece of paper tucked in between the pages. My heart raced. I pulled it out, hands trembling. As I unfolded it, I realized it was a map. A crudely drawn outline with a bold mark at a location I didn't recognize. Where the shadows gather, it read in the same elegant script as the letter. A strange sensation washed over me. Was this what the letter meant? I glanced around the attic as shadows flickered in the corners, and a knot of fear tightened in my stomach. Feeling a mix of excitement and dread, I knew I had to follow it. But as I turned to leave, a cold gust of wind swept through the room. The attic door slammed shut behind me. I rushed back to it, but it wouldn't budge. Panic took hold as I realized I was trapped. The darkness around me deepened, and I could feel it closing in. I pounded on the door, desperate to get out, but then I heard it, a whisper, soft but clear. Come to me. My breath caught in my throat. Something was waiting for me to make the next move. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. I stood frozen in the attic, my fists clenched tight against the panic rising within me. Shadows wrapped themselves around the beams, swirling like dark smoke. The whisper echoed again. Come to me. I glanced around, desperate for an escape. The map fell from my grasp, drifting to the dusty floor. My heart raced as I pounded against the door again, yelling for help. But my voice felt swallowed by the thick darkness. I thought of all those horror movies where the protagonist gets trapped, and dread slammed into me. Feeling that I would lose my mind if I didn't act, I pressed my ear against the door. Silence. I took a step back, scanning the tiny attic, searching for any other way out. There was nothing, just old trunks and boxes packed with memories and junk. Then I remembered. Margaret's diary. I rushed back to grab it, flipping through the pages. The entries felt different now, murky with a weight I hadn't noticed before. My fingers brushed against familiar words. Secrets lie hidden in the dark, where shadows can weave together the past. That's when I saw it, an entry underlined in red ink. Return to the place where you first felt the chill. The words sent a shiver through me. I hadn't paid attention to it before. The chill. I'd felt it in the library earlier that day. What did it mean? Before I could think, the door rattled again, pulling me back. Something was on the other side, trying to push through. My breath quickened as I realized that I wasn't alone. Come to me. It was closer. With a rush of strength, I hurled the diary at the door, attempting to distract whatever was lurking outside. The noise echoed, but there was no response. It simply grew quieter. Desperation flooded my veins. I needed to get to that library and understand what I had started. The thought of the chilling air in there propelled me forward. I turned back to the window, a last hope gleaming in my mind. It was small, but maybe I could squeeze through. I hurried over and pulled aside the curtain. The night sky loomed dark outside, but I could see the shadows pooling around the old trees. As I aimed my legs and prepared to jump, a loud bang echoed behind me. The attic door flew open, slamming against the wall. My heart stopped. I turned to find a figure standing there, cloaked in darkness, their features obscured. It beckoned me with a slow, deliberate motion. "Come." Fear washed over me. I had to move. I scrambled back toward the window, about to leap when I caught a glimpse of its face. Eyes glinted like wet stones, completely void of warmth. I dove out the window, landing hard in a tangled mess of leaves and grass. Pain shot through my ankle, but I pushed aside the sting as I scrambled to my feet. I didn't look back. Fear drove me forward. As I raced across the yard, the whisper followed me, trailing like a chilling breeze. "You can't escape." My only thought was to reach my car and escape this nightmare, but I knew deep down that it was only just beginning. Branches clawed at my arms as I ran through the dark yard, each shadow feeling alive, pressing in around me. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing in my ears. I had to focus. The car was just a few more steps away. I spotted it. My old sedan sat under the flickering streetlight, but instead of relief, a surge of dread rushed through me. The door locks. I fumbled for my keys, hands trembling as I dug through my pockets. "Where are you?" A hushed giggle echoed from behind me, a sound so wrong that it froze me mid-motion. I glanced back over my shoulder, but all I could see was darkness swirling, shifting like smoke. Anxiety clawed at my insides. Was it the figure from the attic? Or had something else come after me? I snapped my head forward, forcing my fingers to hurry through the keys. At last I found the right one and jammed it into the ignition. The engine whined before sputtering to life. I slammed the gear into drive, my foot stomping down on the gas. As I sped down the dirt road, I tried to shake off that feeling from the attic. The whispering voice echoed in my mind, and I could swear I sensed it in my bones. "You can't escape." Panic clogged my throat as I turned in the direction of the library. It made sense to return. The chill I felt earlier gnawed at my thoughts, beckoning me back. I pulled my phone from my pocket, but the screen was black. I cursed. No signal. What was it with this place and its hidden secrets? The library came into view, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. I parked in a hurry, jumping out and rushing toward the entrance. The old wooden door creaked ominously as I pushed it open. The air inside hit me, layered with dust, and that same chill I remembered. As I entered, flickering lights overhead cast strange shadows on the walls. My heart raced, not just from fear but from a gnawing need to uncover the truth. I stepped deeper inside, the whisper growing stronger. "Come to me. Find what was lost." Hesitant footsteps led me toward the back, closer to where the history books lined the shelves. That was where I'd first felt it, the unseen force pulling at me. I started scanning the shelves, knowing I had to find something, anything that could explain the strange happenings. That's when I noticed a book that seemed out of place. It was thick with a red spine with no title on the front. My fingers tingled as I reached for it, and the moment I lifted it, the temperature around me dropped even further. I opened the cover. The pages felt old and brittle. Words spun across the paper, nearly illegible. My eyes widened at the first few lines. Those who touch the past might awaken the dark. Before I could process it fully, a loud thud echoed from behind me, making me whirl around. The door slammed shut with a force that rattled the shelves. I was trapped in the library, with whatever was haunting me now inside too. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. But the only response was the whisper, now a low growl rumbling through the air. "You should have never come back." I felt the weight of unseen eyes and panic clawed at my throat. I scrambled to find a way out, but as I turned back to the book, a figure emerged from the shadows, their face twisted in a snarl that sent shockwaves of terror through me. I realized then I hadn't just returned to the library. I had awakened something devastating. In that moment, the world around me shifted, the panic coiling tighter around my chest. The shadows in the library deepened, swirling toward the center like a vortex. The figure stepped into the dim light, a ghastly version of the man from the attic. His gaze was hungry and haunted, and I felt the urge to flee rush through me again. "Why are you here?" he growled, voice gravelly and low. "Do you think you can change what has already happened?" I took a hesitant step back, afraid of what he might do. But I held the ancient book tightly in my hands, bolstered by a flicker of determination. "I'm not afraid of you," I shot back, though I was trembling inside. "I just want to know about Margaret. What happened to her?" His expression twisted as if he was caught between surprise and wrath. "You shouldn't meddle with things you don't understand," he hissed, advancing toward me. "The diary! It said to find her!" I exclaimed, guilt mingling with confusion. "What do you want with her?" Eeriness blossomed in the air, and his countenance shifted from anger to something almost sorrowful. "She is lost," he rasped, voice breaking. "She was never meant to be found. You shouldn't have stirred her from the shadows." A faint echo like whispers of long-buried secrets swirled in the corners of the room. In that fleeting moment of connection, I sensed his grief was genuine. I pressed forward, urgency fueling my words. "But what happened? Why can't she be at peace?" "Emotions bind the spirit," he replied, his frame wavering like smoke. "Her absence haunts this place. You've awakened that grief, and it wants more than just a voice. It seeks resolution, but it may take all you have." Just then the air grew thick, and I felt tendrils of darkness curling around me, seeping from the very walls of the library. The room felt smaller, like a vice clamping down as the growling whispers grew frantic. The other figure stood motionless, his features lost in shadow. "Leave while you still can," he pleaded, anguish breaking through the snarl. "Don't let it claim you too." But the book in my hands rattled with power, a pulse resonating that echoed with my own heartbeat. I could feel Margaret's presence swirling around me like stirred dust, beckoning toward hidden truths. Just beyond the veil of darkness, something genuine flickered, a promise of clarity. As the shadows lunged for me, instinct seized me. I raised the book in front of me in a desperate stance, feeling the warmth of its material pulse against my palm. "Margaret Mayfield," I shouted, voice fierce and imploring. "I'm not your enemy. I'm here to help you." The shadows halted, a moment of stillness breaking the chaotic weight around us. For a heartbeat, a phantom pathway emerged before me, connecting the past and unearthed histories. I could see flickers of a memory twirling through. Margaret, once vibrant, now lost. That's when I understood. It wasn't just her story. It was an unsolved puzzle we shared. I took a step forward, guided by a force I could barely comprehend. "What do you want?" I asked the entity. "I can help you find peace. Just show me." The figures before me flickered, the man and Margaret's silhouette merging into one. "Find the truth," echoed the darkness. "Follow where the shadows gather. Only then will you know freedom." With renewed determination, I forced myself into that flickering path, hoping against hope to piece together her fragmented essence, each thread straining with the unseen connections that bound time and emotion. I felt the warmth of compassion blanket around me as I continued, pushing deeper into Margaret's story. My heart pounded as shadows whispered their secrets and fears. Then an eruption of light engulfed the space, scattering the darkness like ashes on the wind. I was flung backward, tumbling into the disorienting embrace of silence. As darkness receded, I stumbled, the library around me restored to normalcy. But when I looked for the man, the shadows had claimed their own again. I stood alone, breathless. Had I just imagined it? I glanced at the book cradled in my arms. It felt heavier now, the weight of those histories pressing down. I could still feel the gust of unease threading through my veins. As I stood in the quiet library, questions bubbled unsettlingly in my mind. What had just happened? Where had Margaret gone? Why did darkness speak to me? And what truths had I just glimpsed? With a deep breath, I walked out of the library, the heaviness of the night pressing against my skin. I couldn't shake that feeling, though. Something profound was still lingering just beyond the periphery of understanding. I moved to my car and began the drive home. In the rearview mirror, shadows flickered and twisted, the whisper echoing softly once more. Find her? No, it wasn't over yet. And deep inside, I knew I had unsealed something far more complex than I ever intended. As I drove away, uncertainty settled in my heart like a persistent echo. Would I return to face whatever darkness awaited me again? I could no longer pretend I wasn't part of Margaret's continuing story. Often, the answers lie in what we dare to confront. I moved to a different part of Tennessee shortly after that, seeking solace from the tumult I had unearthed. I heard the whispers fade over time, but late at night, in the silence, I still felt the intangible pall of the past lingering just beyond my reach. Would they come for me again? Or would this be my burden to unravel alone? I guess time would tell.